Thank you. We're going to call the meeting to order, City Council meeting to order, Monday, June 18th, 2007, right at 7:07 p.m. The invocation this evening will be provided by Pastor Jimmy Williams of the Greater New Mount Zion Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, the Police Explorers, and Vice Mayor Losner. Would you all please stand?
Eternal, everlasting God, we thank you tonight for this great assembly that you have called us to. We pray that you guide our city officials and the mayor and the assistant mayor to serve us, the citizens, your people. We ask this, and that you touch every person in here tonight. We ask all of this. Amen.
Amen.
Please join with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hold her heart. Hold pace. Hold her heart.
You may be seated. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Vice Mayor Losner.
Here.
Councilwoman Bell.
Here.
Councilwoman Garner.
Here.
Councilman Hodge. Councilman Porter.
Here.
Councilwoman Waldman.
Councilman Wallman, and I know the manager's at Miami-Dade Chamber meeting, and they probably won't make it in time this evening for the meeting, and Mr. Councilman Hodge had a conflict with another meeting he had, so he probably won't be here this evening. Any additions, deletions, or deferrals? None. Well, I have a very special announcement. On June the 12th, a very special angel was in Keysgate. It was the birthday of Councilwoman Amanda Garner. Happy birthday.
Thank you, Mayor.
Special presentation, 5A Officer of the Month, Officer Eileen Calvo, Councilman Porter. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council, Mr. Deputy City Manager. Our Officer of the Month for March is Eileen Calvo, who's standing right here. Eileen's been with us for a couple of years, and to start off, I'll let you know, last September she already received one Officer of the Month, so this is her second, which is quite an honor for a young officer. I'll just go over a few of the things she did during the month of March. Eileen takes her job very seriously, and she deals with certain areas on her own. People are trespassing. She gets to know the business owners, the apartment complex owners. She made a few arrests involving trespassing. On another case, she saw a suspicious person Looked like he was going to steal a bike. Obviously saw the car that she was driving. She stopped the individual, and he had a bench warrant. So obviously this guy was up to no good. A really important case that she handled her call, which actually turned into an investigation, was at one of our local drugstores. The management told her that they thought drugs were disappearing from the drugstore. Now, this is a patrol officer, and sometimes they'll call a detective by. She took the case on herself, was able to find out what was taken. She viewed the tapes, and she actually got a written confession from an employee who was stealing narcotics from the drugstore. So it's a very good case on her part. And I would like to add that during the races in November, let's say there's about 100,000 people there, there was an individual wanted for murder, and a flyer had been put out. It was an individual from Florida City, I believe. Officer Calvo, while working in the paddock area, recognized the subject, and he was arrested for murder by Miami-Dade Police Department, or attempted murder. So that's another great thing. So I'd like to thank Chief Alroll and Major Scott Kennedy for hiring officers like this. Thank you very much. Councilman Porter?
Well, it's always with great pleasure that I get to stand up here on behalf of the mayor and the council as the public safety chair and reward on a monthly basis the officers that are considered outstanding by your peers. So without any further discussion, I'd like to give you these awards on behalf. These are brought to the city clerk or to Patty, our assistant, from the business community. Basically, anyone that wants to participate in honoring these officers can do $10, whatever you want to do. But these guys, they do a great job for us on a day-to-day basis. Just a little bit of an opportunity to pay back. But tonight, you get the plaque is donated by Awards Inc. The city attorney's office, Weiss, Schroeder, Hoffman, and a whole bunch of other people. That's a $100 check. Thank you, Richard. First National Bank of South Florida is a $50 savings bond. Community Bank of South Florida is a $50 savings bond. Ferguson's Jewelry is a $75 gift certificate. Ruby Tuesday's Restaurant is a $25 gift certificate. Global Technologies Partners Inc., $50 check. Logos Old Dixie is a $50 gift certificate. Dale Blake at Blake Chevrolet is a $300 value oil lube tire rotation. Captain Car Wash is a free $20 value car wash. Nita Jensen, 2 memberships to Homestead Community Concerts. And Homestead Miami Speedway is a $100 check. And I know you're familiar with this because you already got this. But I do see you. I do see you a lot on the street, and you make yourself very visible. I see you through my neighborhood and through a lot of other neighborhoods, and I really do appreciate that exposure. And the plaque reads, presented to Officer Aileen Calvo for being selected Officer of the Month for March 2007. Congratulations.
Thank you. I just want to thank the City of Homestead along with the higher command staff for giving me the opportunity to work for the Homestead Police Department. I'm honored today to receive this award. And without the team effort of my fellow officers, I wouldn't be here today. But thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Any family member come forward.
Just for the viewing audience and also City Council and the Mayor, she also has a bachelor's degree in criminology from Florida State University. I had a hard time deciphering that, because of my UM background, but I gave her a chance anyway, so anyway.
Let me thank Pastor Williams and the Vice Mayor Pastor Williams for the invocation and Vice Mayor Losner for the pledge. Next we have the Safety Award recipients. Vice Mayor Losner.
I hate it.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, under the auspices of Councilwoman Waldman's various committee assignments, the City of Homestead now recognizes 3 employees each month under the Safety Award program. We all know, and as we've seen here with all of our Officer of the Month presentations, that the real backbone of this community are its employees who go to work every day, who are on our streets to protect us and keep this community running. And we want to also recognize those throughout our various departments. To qualify this award, must be a full-time employee, must be free of accidents and injuries for the preceding 6 consecutive months, and not receive workman's comp benefits for the preceding 6 months. The recognition to be awarded includes a certificate, a paid day off, safety badge with their names posted in recognition in the main lobby bulletin board at City Hall, a $25 check from our firm of city attorneys. Every month we recognize 3 employees. We have some who were not able to be here during their months of recognition. So for the month of February, I understand Joe Mosqueda from Parks and Recreation is here tonight for the month of February. Joe will use you as the guinea pig. Sure. Envelopes are full of goodies, but I want to read the certificate that each of our recipients tonight will receive. It's a safety award in recognition of your commitment to workplace safety. We hereby express our sincere appreciation to Jose Mosqueda for consistent dedication in workplace safety and remaining accident-free for the preceding 6 consecutive months, issued by the City of Homestead. The month of February, Jose Mosqueda. Thank you. Your words?
No, okay. Excellent.
Well, again, we want you to know that we appreciate all of your efforts on behalf of all of us in the City of Homestead. Thank you. Okay, we have for the month of May, Nathan Burkett from Parks and Recreation and Jose Delgado from Public Works and Services. Thank you. Appreciate it. And finally, for the month of June, we have with us Vincent Fields from the Police Department / Code Enforcement, and Henry Perez from General Services Customer Service Department. And Henry Perez, thank you. Offer any of you the opportunity to say a few words. Jose's passed on his opportunity. Again, we want to thank each and every one of you and just again acknowledge your hard work and the things that you do for us every day to keep this city running. And again, thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And let me recognize the former mayor of the City of Homestead, Mayor Fred Rhodes. Thank you, sir, for coming out this evening. Former Vice Mayor of the City of Homestead, Ms. Ruth Campbell. Thank you, ma'am. And former Mayor, Mr. Steve Shivers in the back. Thank you, sir. All right, Child Envy Prevention Presentation, Jackson Memorial Hospital. Is there a representative here from Jackson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, very much, and Council council members for this presentation on injury prevention. And this is, I'll let you introduce yourself, Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Yulehorn, and I'm here with Susie Kolb to talk to you about the Miami-Dade County Injury Surveillance System. Can you put our slides up?
Do we need to?
You can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, I'm with the Miami-Dade County Injury Surveillance System. We're a partnership of the University of Miami and Jackson Health Systems, or Jackson Hospital, and also the Miami-Dade Department of Health. We've been funded by the Health Foundation of South Florida for our first 2 years, and we're in our third year of funding, and we're currently being funded by the Children's Trust. Next slide. So what is a surveillance system? What we do is collect data on fatal and non-fatal injuries to county residents. We get our data from a variety of sources, including medical examiner data, hospital discharge data from the state, emergency departments, and others. And now in our current phase, we've been collecting this data for 2 years. We're now focusing on dissemination to the community. Next slide. And here's one of the maps we've created with the data, and this is injury mortality data, so death data by victims' residential zip code. And so here you can see the data is in quartiles, so the blue and red areas are above average. So here we can see, that's why we're here, down in South County, because many of the Homestead zip codes are above average. Next slide. And here I'll just briefly go into some of the data from some of the Homestead zip codes. Next slide. And here's some data for the 2005 for both fatal and non-fatal injuries for those zip codes. And here you can see out of 8,600 so injuries, only 57 or less than 1% were death-related injuries that resulted in death. A greater number, about 8%, were treated in the emergency room and resulted in a hospitalization, and an even greater number were treated in the emergency room and released. And even larger number were treated and not seen in any of those areas. So the death data obviously is just the tip of the iceberg to a larger injury problem. Next. And here you can see the leading causes of death in the Homestead zip code by age group. And consistent with national data, injury is the leading cause of death other than one age group there for those between 1 and 44, whereas in the older folks, cancer, heart disease come in. But among young people, injury is the leading cause of death. Next slide. And here, among those injury deaths, we can see the ranking of the zip code by resident, victim resident. And here you see the 4 Homestead zip codes, and those numbers are the ranking for the type of injury, so where that zip code fits in among other Dade County zip codes. And you can see for unintentional injuries, 33033 is number 1. For motor vehicle crash, that zip code is the second highest incidence of that injury in Dade County. Pedestrian injuries, second also. And 33035 also is number 1 for all cause and suicide. But this is a rate, so this is a number per 10,000 population. So a zip code with a lower population would have there's a caveat there. Next slide. And this will be a larger number because this includes deaths, hospitalizations, and emergency department visit. And here again are those rankings. And we see 33035 is number 1 for all those types of injuries. But again, that's a zip code with a lower population. But 33033 is number 2 for many causes: all-cause injury, all unintentional, self-inflicted, unintentional fall and motor vehicle crashes, as well as animal bites. Next. So the bottom line, injuries aren't accidents. They happen to high-risk people and in high-risk places. And part of what we're doing is to identify and target these people and places for injury prevention programs. And what we can offer through this program is not just data, but guidance and consultation on prevention programs using best practices. Next. And Susie is going to talk about one of our programs that we have.
Thank you, Susan, very much. I don't know if any of you have seen the Injury-Free Mobile. It's been here several times recently. Have you all seen that? It's a huge red bus. Are you familiar with it? We've made several visits to Homestead recently. The Injury-Free Mobile is actually, it's like a simulated home on the inside of the mobile. Susan, if you can go to the next slide. We have like a simulated kitchen. We have a simulated eating area. And what we do is we take parents on tours throughout the bus and introduce them to ways that they can prevent childhood injury. We have a simulated bathroom, staircase, a crib area, and a pool area where we talk to the parents about how to prevent injury. Another thing that we do aboard the mobile is we provide low-cost or no-cost safety items and also brochures and printed safety information. And this is something we just did recently with RCMA here in Homestead. We did a car seat checkup event where people bring their cars in and we check their car seats to make sure that they're secured, installed correctly, and the child is secured correctly in the car seat. And if they don't have seats available, we make sure that they have seats provided for them. Okay, are there any questions about anything we presented on, or any comments? Yes?
I noticed there seemed to be an unusually high number of unintentional poisonings and covers a portion of Homestead. Now, and I didn't have that amount in mind when you were going earlier and itemizing the injuries by age category. But, well, that's okay. But the one before that is the ranking. That's the actual 16 unintentional poisonings. Now, is that mostly young? Do you have a breakdown? Is that young children, or is that the home zip code of maybe agricultural workers or other type of workers who are exposed at work?
Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know if Susan can, but...
The 16 is a ranking, so their 16th, their rate is the 16th highest, out of the 75 residential zip codes. And we have so much more data, all of this broken down by age, but the limitation for the mortality data and some of the other databases is that it's by zip code. Yeah, it's resident zip code. It's not where it occurs. It's where the victim's residence is. So, yeah, there's a unique population down here too to look into.
Okay, and there is a lot more information, as Susan said. We have a lot more information that we would love to come back and present again and do a very formal presentation for you, and also provide you information on what resources beyond the Injury-Free Mobile are available. Okay, thank you very much.
Next on the agenda is item 5E, Household Debt Solutions Presentation. Is someone here for that?
My name is Richard Marks. I'd like to thank Councilman Hodge for inviting me and speak about a very important issue affecting all of us, which is household debt. I believe we're in a nationwide debt crisis. Last year, for the first time in history since the Depression, household debt has exceeded income. Financial planners will recommend that the average family should save 10% of their income long-term to be healthy financially. That percentage has been going down and down and down continually. And last year, for the first time, it was negative, which meant the average household is spending more than they earn. You only have to look at the biggest cost for the household is mortgages, taxes, insurance, credit cards, car loans. It all is adding up to be a very serious crisis, if you like. Statistics show that 80% of divorce stems from financial stress, so it is a very serious problem. I'm a branch manager with a company, which is a 10-year-old debt-free company. We work nationwide to help households with this problem. And we're working locally with a number of local bank branches. We're working with realtors, mortgage brokers, financial planners across the board. We're none of those, but we help any of those individuals to forward the solution that we have to present. I've been working with David Williams, who unfortunately was not able to be here tonight. He's a local realtor, 25 years in the community. And as I said, we've been working with several local bank branches, all who have the aim of helping households with this debt crisis. Now, my intention is not to go into details of the program itself, but to cover what it can do for the average homeowner, and then leave a number where people can get more information. Our program it's basically an online software package that enables the average homeowner to pay off their mortgage in 1/3 to 1/2 the normal time, saving tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars or more in interest. It's not a refinance, does not require the homeowner to refinance. There's no change in the monthly cash flow or lifestyle. It's not a biweekly payment program. It's not a debt roll-down program. And there's no change in the monthly mortgage payment. So what we offer is a solution with no obligation. Not everyone qualifies for the program. I'm going to give a toll-free number where anyone can call to leave their number and get more information about whether they qualify and how this would apply to them to enable them to pay their mortgage off in 1/3 to 1/2 the time. Basically be debt-free. This would include credit cards, car loans, student loans, any other debt. Be totally debt-free. On average, if it was a 30-year mortgage, on average in 8 to 11 years. Of course, if it's a shorter term like 15, we're talking maybe 5 or 6 years to be totally debt-free. I believe the average American family doesn't have debt-free in their vocabulary. So we never intend to pay off our mortgages. We're going to 40 and 50-year mortgages. It's getting worse and worse, but we believe there is a solution. There's a way to reverse this. So that toll-free number, I don't know if you can see it from there, 1-800-692-5671. That's 1-800-692-5671. You can leave your name and number and we'll provide more information for you. We also are offering career opportunities. Anyone in the financial services, whether financial planners, CPA, mortgage broker, realtor, anyone in that field, we do have a career opportunity available for those people to help the average homeowners. So thank you very much for having me. I'm born in Miami, by the way. I'm local, but I spent 30 years in New Zealand, which explains my accent a little bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're next on the consent agenda is a motion for approval.
I'll move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Ford. Any question on the consent agenda? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Attorney, public hearings?
Please be advised the following items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature. If you wish to comment upon any of these items, please indicate the item number you'd like to address when the announcement regarding the quasi-judicial item is made. An opportunity for a person to speak on each item will be made available after the applicant and staff have made their presentations on each item. All testimony, including public testimony and evidence, will be made under oath or affirmation. Additionally, each person who gives testimony may be subject to cross-examination. If you do not wish to either be cross-examined or sworn, your testimony will be given its due weight. The general public will not be permitted to cross-examine witnesses, but the public may request the counsel to ask questions of staff or witnesses on their behalf. The full agenda package on each item is hereby entered into the record. Persons representing organizations must present evidence of their authority to speak for the organization. Further details of the quasi-judicial procedures may be obtained from the clerk. In accordance with Code Section 2591, any lobbyist must register before addressing the council on any of the following items. At this time, council members must disclose any ex parte communication concerning any items on the quasi-judicial agenda. At this time, the clerk will swear in any persons who wish to testify in any quasi-judicial item.
Please stand and raise your right hand. I state your name, hereby swear or affirm that the information I present shall be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. Thank you.
Item 7A is the first reading of an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, granting the request of Daniel Orozco for a rezoning from R3 Multiple Apartment District to B1A Professional Business Restricted District for property located at 171 Northwest 8th Street as legally described in Exhibit A and providing for an effective date. This is first reading.
I'll move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by the Vice Mayor. Any comments from council? If not, I'll open the public hearing. Any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? I hear none. I close the public hearing. Any final comments from council?
Question for staff.
Staff question, Vice Mayor?
Will this be subject to site plan approval? Or it'll just have to meet parking, landscaping, just the garden variety without coming back before us?
No, sir. If there is any changes to the existing condition, they have to come through the site plan.
Okay. I don't see the applicant here, and I really have reservations about approving something when the applicant or its representative doesn't show for at least first reading. I just want to make that comment. Right? Clearly, this is exactly what we anticipated 7 years ago when the overlay was put in place for this area. Well, before any of us had any idea that the hospital was going to move, we wanted to motivate, incentivize the process of converting substandard housing and more readily into professional offices. So it is beginning to work as the east side becomes prohibitively expensive for mom and pop professional type offices. I think we're beginning to see a real resurgence west of US 1. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Any other comments? Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Legislative matters, ordinance, first reading, an ordinance of the City of Homestead, Florida, amending the city's fiscal year budget beginning October 1st, 2006 and ending September 30th, 2007 by increasing both the revenue and expenditure budget of $17,151,662, providing for severability and effective date.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell, second by Councilman Porter. And I assume, Councilwoman Bell, you're moving this forward.
I am. I did.
Thank you. This is the first reading of an ordinance. Is there any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Any final comments from council? Roll call, Madam Clerk. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Real quickly, if we could give the layperson's thumbnail description of what's really going on here. We're not going back and saying we're increasing taxes for last year, increasing revenue for this year. It's more of a bookkeeping entry to reflect unspent monies that were budgeted last year that can't remain in accounting limbo. This has nothing to do with any ongoing change in revenue enhancement. Is that, Ms. Bell?
And it has a lot to do with the balanced budget.
Yeah.
Jan, why don't you elaborate a little bit on that? Yes, it's primarily rolling forward, but monies that were budgeted in the prior year that were not spent. So they're related to ongoing projects. And then there was $6.6 million of accounting cleanup going on. There's a small amount of an increase for the electric utility substations.
Right, but it's not increased taxes from last year.
No, it has nothing to do with taxes.
It's money in hand.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Any other comments? If not, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, supporting the Employee Free Choice Act, providing an effective date.
Is there a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilwoman Bell. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilwoman Garner. Any initial comments from council?
I have a question.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
I'll tell you, I am more perplexed as to where this came from, or not so much where, but why, than I was on the immigration resolution a few weeks ago. What's really the impetus of this? Apparently this is being supportive of some pending federal legislation, and as best I can tell, it perhaps eases the burden, takes out some roadblocks for privately employed employees to form labor unions. Is that the thumbnail sketch? It really is no direct relation or impact to any of our city employees who are currently represented by unions. It's just generally supportive of
That's correct.
federal regulation that would remove some roadblocks.
That's correct.
And it's not in conflict with any of our Florida statutes as far as we know. Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Any other comments on the resolution? If not, roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
Yes.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
At this time, we will entertain any public comments. Any public comments at this time? Please give us your name and address for the record.
Brian Judge, 260 Northeast 10th Street. Mayor, Council, I just wanted to comment on item B under the city manager's business, the $2 million loan. Now, you know, the city has a kind of a bad history on loans and on real estate deals, so I just wanted to encourage y'all to make doubly sure that you're going down the right track with this. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Clara Waterman Powell, 2274 Southeast 27th Drive, and this is my chamber moment. Tomorrow, June 19th, at 11:30, we're going to be presenting how to do business with the City of Homestead and Florida City. It's a lunchtime event, and Mia's Cafe is going to be catering it. And the other item is Thursday, the 28th, State Representative Ron Saunders is going to be providing a legislative update at the Redland Country Club at 24451 Southwest 177th Avenue, also known as Chrome. And that's $25 for guests and chamber members and $20 without reservations. Those are just two things I think were important to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
My turn. Edward Powell, 2274 Southeast 27th Drive. I just wanted to comment, the committee meeting you had earlier with the red light camera. Well, my wife and I, for Father's Day, thought we would treat ourselves to a trip to Gulfstream Park. They're obviously not racing, but they are pulling the slots. So we went up 95, and as we turned on Hallandale Beach Boulevard, you come to Dixie Highway and another intersection, US 1. Well, here in the middle of the street, or on the island, is a big flashing sign, says red light camera surveillance, $182.50, you decide. Okay, so we got through South Dixie, and we got to US 1, and all the traffic was coming at us and making their turn. Well, they must have had progress because only 3 people ran the red light. Normally there would be 6 or so. So I thought I would pass that along. But if you run up there, they're giving them warnings before they find them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Fred Rhodes, I live at 101 Northwest 21st Street. I want to make sure you can hear me because I can't hear a thing y'all say. But anyway, you don't speak in the microphone. I'm here to thank you for naming that street after the Biondo, Louis Biondo. He was a hero in World War II. And I see that the city passed it, and I think the county's got to pass it, but I don't know about that. But one thing I wish that, I don't know I read the article about item coming up on the agenda about Booker's old property in the southwest section. I read that in the Miami Herald, but I don't know who's giving that to the Miami Herald, but why don't they give it to the Homestead people too? Why don't give it to the Homestead paper? Everything I read about Homestead's in the Miami Herald. We've got a Homestead paper and there's nothing in there worth reading except the ads in Home Hardware, and the old page they put in about years ago. I love that. But they need to get, I don't know whether the newspaper don't have a reporter that talks to you people or something, but my goodness, they need to get on the ball a little bit. And I want to thank you for naming that street after Louis Biondo. And another thing I wanted to tell you about is I'm trying to get an article story about the boys that lost their lives in Vietnam. And I had 5 today, and I've had some people working on the internet, and now I've got 15 boys that were killed in Vietnam in Homestead, Redland, Florida City, and there may be more. I'm trying to find their families. I've found about 3 or 4, and their relatives have cooperated with me and given this to me. I'm going to try to do some stories about it in a local paper. But I may need to get you people to help me with that too, but I just thought I'd tell you, President Bush is getting a lot of sad talk about what's happening in Iraq. Well, Johnson was president, and Kennedy was president at Vietnam, and I don't hear anybody bad talking them, but we Homestead alone lost 15 men in Vietnam. Something to think about and something to be proud of. Thank you.
We'll move on to business from the city manager, Mr. Shahada.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I have a couple of items here. We have a contractor hit one of our distribution boxes for a power line in the east side in the Oasis development. It's scheduled to be repaired tomorrow starting at 8 o'clock, and the developers, since they caused the problem, they were calling the homeowners since Thursday to notify them of what's going on. There will be a ribbon cutting ceremony for Lasner Park on Friday, June 29th at 9 a.m. The Citizen Academy is going to start on July 11th, and there is still a chance for people to call and register to join the academy. The phone number is 305-224-4485. This is just on the announcement side, and of course we have 2 items also.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question before you leave? Sure. Mr. Shahada, that's the same power outage that knocked the hospital out last week? Is that the same accident?
No.
Okay. But is there, with this repair, is there going to be an outage anywhere tomorrow during this time frame?
There is going to be outage starting at 8 a.m. and it could last up to 6 hours.
So there is a power outage for up to 6 hours?
That's correct.
Okay, because I didn't quite hear it that way. That's a significant outage.
Mr. Mayor, Council Member, item B is loan to the Community Development Agency for acquisition of the shotgun houses.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll move it, Mayor.
Moved by Councilman Porter, is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Councilwoman Garner. Any comments from council?
Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Mayor, and then Ms. Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. Clearly, at the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting last week, we had this discussion and authorized the negotiation of a contract by CRA for the potential acquisition, with a contingency to that being a loan from the city's general fund to be reimbursed by the sale of the bowling alley for the purpose of buying the shotgun houses. And my first impression would be is that this is either premature or I don't have enough information in front of me. The analysis here talks about that the loan would be repaid from the CRA portion of the due to CRA from the sale of the bowling alley. But what I'm not certain of is whether or not the proceeds from the sale of the bowling alley that would be allocable to CRA after the general fund receives a return of its money, whether or not it would be sufficient to reimburse the $2 million loan. We just don't have those figures before us. I mean, clearly, at baseline, from whatever the sale price of the bowling alley is, in excess of $1.5 million needs to go back to the general fund for its purchase of the mortgage several years ago, as well as any attorney's fees and costs and other issues involved with the capturing of that ownership. And perhaps it would be helpful to the public to realize that to the extent that there are net proceeds left from the sale of the bowling alley, the city is required to utilize that excess in a certain manner for what's generally called community development block grant projects. Is that correct, Mr. Stouts? Which can include housing acquisition, housing assistance, housing loan assistance, a whole host of issues within the CRA area, not necessarily allocated to 100% to this type of acquisition. But first, my concern is that we don't know that there's sufficient there. There would need to be a policy decision as to whether or not we are going to dip into the general fund and allocate general fund monies in the event there is a shortfall to acquire this property. And secondly, I think as a real estate practitioner, it would seem that without a contract before us to consider, that the loan request, if you will, if we're going to serve as the bank, if the city's going to serve as the bank to the CRA, you don't go to the bank and ask for a loan until you've got a fully negotiated and executed contract in hand. We don't have that tonight. It would seem that maybe we're putting the chicken before the egg. And while it's very tempting to go back and talk about the merits as to whether or not the city should even be in the housing business or acquire this parcel, tonight I don't think is the time for that conversation. From my perspective, and that would happen at the time we come back and consider the negotiated contract that the CRA brings back to the manager, brings back for our consideration for approval. So it would seem then that again, I think we're putting the chicken before the egg, since we don't have a contract before us, number one, and number two, we don't really have some pro forma analysis as to whether or not the anticipated proceeds from the sale of the bowling alley would be sufficient without actually encumbering and consuming general fund revenues. And I don't know, Mr. Attorney, if this would be an appropriate time to ask, do we have a reasonable time frame for the occurrence of being in a position to schedule and have a sale of that parcel?
Well, let me give you the information that I have. After the CAL meeting that we had, where you directed us to prepare a contract, we began to prepare a contract. So that's sort of the first part of it, and that's not a complicated contract, but it'll be done relatively quickly. The second piece of it is the sale of the bowling alley. You know, we have as we talked about some time ago, there is an issue with an SBA loan and some things that don't appear clear in the title. We have filed suit to clear that title. We tried to deal with it administrative through the Small Business Administration, but that's just at the beginning stages. So that's sort of where we are in that, and so I can't really.
So it's really open-ended.
That's really that one.
Litigation, we all know, is open-ended.
Yes. I can't give you a time frame on that. The contract, I can tell you, will be done very quickly.
So really, if we move forward, whether it be with contract or without a contract, implicit in that is some policy decision, not only that we're going to allocate the CDBG funds to the acquisition of the shotgun houses, but a policy decision as to whether or not we're going to utilize general funds. And it's funny how some numbers seem to keep recurring. As I understand it, with the tax reform package that was enacted in Tallahassee last week, we're looking at about a $2.5 million reduction in general fund revenues next year, and we're being asked to potentially allocate at least $2 million and potentially more of city monies to the acquisition of a single property. And what I'm grappling with is the business procedure here as to whether or not it's even timely to discuss the loan, and not without getting into the merits of whether or not we should even buy the property and what may or may not have gone on. Another question, final question, Mayor, that I have is that in our package, one of the basis for the recommendation is that there is the statement that because the city subsidy has terminated, the rent subsidy for the displacement, to avoid the potential displacement cost, that the owner needs to either dispose of this parcel or open this parcel back up for rental business. And what I'm going to need to see before I move forward is some opinion as to whether or not these are in a condition such that they could be not rented but legally rented. I mean, I've got some background information that what started this whole ball rolling with the change of hands of ownership was that code enforcement went out, scheduled a meeting with CRA code enforcement and the owners of that parcel, and in a nutshell told the prior owners that this condition can no longer exist, people aren't going to live this way. The mayor sent his personal message. I have copies of that to let the owners know that no one in our community should be allowed to live in those conditions, and it seems that the code enforcement issues got the ball rolling for the change of ownership. So I really got concerns about the impetus here, if you will, that, well, if we don't buy it, it's going to go back in business. And clearly, I don't think any of us support those conditions existing again. And as I stated, something needs to happen there. But the bottom line is I don't think procedurally this is to a point where I can support pledging these monies ahead of time to acquire the property. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Quite a few comments, and thank you for the clarification on the bowling alley, because that was my question too, that while there are claims to the profits or the proceeds from the bowling alley, I'm not necessarily sure that the claims for the proceeds to the bowling alley are accurate. So that's number one, especially with the outstanding loans that the general fund has made in order to acquire the bowling alley. So that being said, the contractual issues that were mentioned are great, but I must tell you, even if there were a great contract that were in front of me right now, I would still oppose this. I could not, regardless of the contract, in good conscience. We've already taken $300,000 of tax monies, whether it's TIF funds or not. I've heard TIF, non-TIF, I don't care. It's $300,000 of taxpayer dollars, and we have subsidized one company to keep these empty. 3 years ago, not to the month, but almost, because I believe it was in November of '04. So almost 3 years ago, November '04, I sat here and said, Mr. Stotts, if you really wanted to do something in this area, why didn't you just go ahead and acquire those rather than subsidize somebody else to acquire them? And your comment was, we didn't have the money. Well, now you're coming before us to buy them, which is what I'm looking at as a bailout, to buy them to borrow the money. So obviously you still don't have the money. So what's changed since '04 to '07? Nothing. You still don't have the money, but we're going to get the money from the general fund. So I can't in good conscience, as the finance chair, even consider allowing the money from the general fund to be loaned to the CRA. That I would be opposed to. Also, I voiced my concerns then, and I will repeat my concerns now. What the city did then and the city continues to do now is the city continues to assume responsibilities and liabilities that are not its own, such as relocation cost. Clearly, when I did the research 3 years ago, the relocation costs that we took upon ourselves and shouldered the responsibility, and that was the reason or excuse to subsidize the owner of the property, the brand new owner of the property, that was to subsidize him to be able to keep it empty so the relocation cost wouldn't have to be paid. Well, here we are 3 years later with the same exact problem, but we're out $300,000. That's unconscionable as far as I'm concerned. There should have been something, and I wasn't at the COW, I was in Kansas City, and certainly we're not in Kansas right now. I'm clicking my heels, and Dorothy, you're not in Kansas anymore. This is just very, very surreal to me that we're right back here almost 3 years later to do the same thing again, except for now $2 million. I just cannot in good conscience even consider this. There are properties all over the city of Homestead that are blighted, that are in poor condition. I mean, why don't we go buy them as well? I mean, let the market take care of the market. Let the market take care of itself. That's what we've been hearing from developers anyway when we tried to oppose extreme density, when we tried to oppose it because there are so many sitting empty, then we're so can't do that. We need to let the market take care of itself. Well, I say let the market take care of itself in the Southwest as far as the purchasing of the shotgun houses. I can't in good conscience think the city should acquire those lots. I do look at it as a bailout, especially when you didn't put any requirements or any onus upon the owner of the property that if something wasn't done in a certain amount of time that the monies would come back to the city. If the monies had come back to the city, then that would be a different ballgame, if you will, but that did not happen. So first of all, I would still say no even if there were a contract on the desk. Also, I have to just come out with this question. Why is this item under city manager's business and not on an item on the normal agenda where there could be public comment, discourse? I mean, there might be a very good reason, but I don't understand why this is on city manager's business and not as an agended item on the agenda. I feel like this is an item that should have been on the agenda, not under city manager's business. And I think this is an item where the city manager should have just said no. 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 I'm going to restate this again. Relocation costs are the responsibility of the owner of the property when he develops that property. You told me that because that was the first question I asked 3 years ago, and that's what you told me, and I also did a little research on that myself. So here we are once again, assuming a responsibility that is not ours. Then I read, when I get my pack, that in effort to spur redevelopment, the CRA desires to acquire the houses. We know, on the one hand, you're saying they're in no condition to be rented out. They're in no condition. They're in very substandard condition. And then on the other hand, we want to go ahead and buy them so they don't rent them out. Well, what is it? Are they in condition to and not in condition to? And if they're not in condition, then we need to code violate them and shut them down. Let the onus of this responsibility be upon the developer. Let the free market economy, let the developer or the owner of this particular property go find a buyer. Let him go find a buyer, but let not that buyer be the city of Homestead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Do you want to respond into this question, Mr. Stiles?
Yes, sir, I would. Let me kind of start with the last issue with the code enforcement. As they exist right now, tonight, they cannot be reoccupied because they do not meet the current housing code. However, I suspect with some modest investment to bring the electricity up to code, the windows and doors up to code, new appliances that are required by housing, not necessarily new, but operating appliances that are required by the housing code, possibly some plumbing work, each house could be brought up to meet that housing code. They are a cinder block house. They are small, and I would suspect for somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 per unit, you could bring that house up to the housing code. Now, it's just a suspicion. I'm not a housing rehab specialist, but I can't imagine it would cost a whole lot more than that in a small house like that simply to bring it up to the housing code when you've got a cinder block building with a roof, assuming it doesn't leak. So many of those units could be brought up to code and could be reoccupied. Remembering that they are not subject to the building code for reoccupancy, only the housing code. And there's a world of difference between those two. So, yes, we do not want them reoccupied, but they could be brought up to the housing code and could be reoccupied. As far as the change of the situation between 2004 and today on the borrowing, there is a difference. In 2004, none of us had any idea what was going to happen with property values or that the funds that ultimately would become available to the city or the CRA would come available. We had no idea that the bowling alley was going to sell and that those funds might become available for use. In 2004, I would have loved to have bought the shotgun houses. But I could not in good conscience recommend that the CRA do so because I didn't see a revenue stream out of which to repay. And I wasn't going to suggest that the CRA borrow money that there was no chance that it could repay. And in 2004, we didn't have $2 million extra to be able to buy the shotgun houses, or $1.5 million, or $1 million for that matter. So in 2004, we could not have bought those shotgun houses. We had borrowed the money from the city. We would not have had the money to pay the city back and operate the CRA. As to the sale of the bowling alley is appraised for nearly $4.5 million. If we assume, as Councilman Vice Mayor Losner has said, that $1.5 million plus needs to go back to the city to repay for the note that the city bought from First National Bank, plus other miscellaneous expenses that have occurred over the years, that still leaves somewhere less than $3 million out of the sale of the bowling alley if it only sells for appraised value. If it sells for less than appraised value, that gives $1 million cushion between the appraised value less $1 million and what it would take to pay back the loan. So my crystal ball says there'll probably be $2 million there. Now, am I an expert? No, I don't claim to be. But what I'm saying is you've got $2 million to pay the loan back plus $1.5 million or so to pay the city back. That's $3.5 million. It would have to sell for $1 million less than its appraised value at the auction before there would not be adequate money to pay the city back. And were that to happen, the CRA still then owes the city something. We're not at all suggesting that if that were to happen, that the CRA forgive the debt to this CRA. CRA would have to find some way to pay it back, maybe ultimately out of the sale of the property when the property is redeveloped. Instead of being able to convey it at a lower cost to a developer, we might have to convey it at a higher price so we'd have the money to pay the city back. The city would be paid back from either the auction or ultimate disposal of property. So does the CRA intend to make the city whole? Yes. Could we have borrowed the money in 2004 and paid it back out of what we could see then for revenue streams? No. And could it be reoccupied? Most likely with some significant expenditures and work, the property could be reoccupied. None of us want to see that. I can't imagine that anybody wants to see the shotgun houses reoccupied.
Thank you, Mr. Stoss. Mr. Porter.
You know, for a long time we sat up here and looked at that area as really being an extremely run-down part of the community. And we've tried for many, many years to do something about it. And many years ago, Mayor, there was a promise to that community that we were going to try to find some way to address that standard of living that was in the Southwest community. This was really a goal, and we've wanted to do it for a long time. when I look at what is being envisioned here, you're taking money from an area on US 1 that doesn't need redevelopment dollars. It's on US 1, it's on a commercial corridor, it's going to survive, it's going to flourish. But you're taking monies off of a commercial corridor and investing them in an area that is extremely blighted and unfortunately, because of our doings, has been under a building moratorium for the last 3 or 4 years. So in addition to it being somewhat behind the rest of the city, we've actually had a building moratorium which didn't allow anything except single family. There's been really no major investment in that community. And it's somewhat like what we're doing with this piece of property. Not the same, but somewhat. Taking money from an area that's going to be fine, it's going to work, it's going to be successful, it's on a commercial corridor, and we chose to reinvest by moving City Hall back into an area where it needed to have a shot in the arm, which was the old Washington Avenue corridor. That was a conscious investment, and that was a policy decision made by the council as to what to do with that resource. So it's not about the owner. It's really about the community. It's really a sad situation when you drive through the Southwest community and see the standard of living that is there. And my position in supporting the request of the CRA director is that if no one, at some point in time, someone has to plant a seed. Wherever that seed comes from, there has to be a seed planted, somewhat like what we're doing with the City Hall. We're planting a seed in the old downtown part of Homestead with the intent of that seed flourishing and having other businesses come in that'll be utilizing the services of the City Hall. I hope that if we do this investment, I hope that will spur the Southwest community further growth faster rather than slower. I don't know who else is going to put any money in the Southwest community to buy a 13-acre piece and do a affordable housing component. And if the CRA director feels like he can make that happen, I would love to see that happen. That's been a goal of ours for a very, very long time. And that's my position in really supporting the initiatives to try to reinvest something in that part of town, which is very, very far behind. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Let me compliment you on your remarks, because I agree wholeheartedly with your comments. It's a commitment we've made to this community, the Southwest community, for many, many years. And even since Hurricane Andrew, we have not seen any significant progress in the Southwest community. So if we don't invest in the community today, when are we going to invest? I think we've been waiting too long and making too many promises to the people there and have not fulfilled not one promise. So I think now is the time where there's available resources that we now need to invest and assist people in the community that want affordable housing. Once and for all, the city should take the lead and provide affordable housing for the African American community primarily, that have pretty much been ignored for years because our focus has been in other places. Now, this is not taking any major risk. That $4.5 million appraisal from the bowling alley will be realized. So Mr. Stout has all the reason to want to move this issue forward so we can expedite a project and provide some kind of impetus so others can come in and follow and develop that community. Now, we all approve this comprehensive Southwest Master Plan. Now, where's the master plan in terms of development today? Very little has been done. And we should no longer consider waiting because we should not invest. That community is in dire need of investment. And if we're going to get the county, if we're going to get the state and the federal government to assist us, we must take the lead. So this evening is a primary opportunity for this council to say we're going to support the people in that community. We're going to provide the housing needs in that community. We're going to follow through with the comprehensive Southwest Master Plan once and for all. Now, what are we going to do with the $4.5 million if not invest in the area that needed the most? That money is pretty much guaranteed. It's going to happen. And I'm just sick and tired of the city waiting for somebody else to do what we need to be doing once and for all. Let's follow through on our commitments. I agree with you, Mr. Porter. We don't do it today, it's never going to happen.
Mayor.
And this is a prime opportunity to make a difference. Ms. Bell?
Thank you. Mayor, with all due respect, that is a good speech, but I heard it 3 years ago. And the problem is, and I'm going to deal with the comments. I heard about we're addressing a standard of living, and it's not about the owner. Nobody made it about the owner. It's not about the owner. You're absolutely right. It's not. The problem is not in addressing a standard of living. The problem is the method whereby we are supposedly trying to address the standard of living. It's the method that I have a problem with here. It has nothing to do with the owner. I haven't mentioned the owner. It doesn't matter who the owner is. The matters, and Councilman Porter, you said we need to plant a seed. Well, 3 years ago we planted 300,000 seeds in the tune of $300,000. That went to one person without seeing any development. We did not put any strings attached to that $300,000 except for keeping them empty. That was wrong. That was wrong. That was not wise. Now, a commitment, it was said that a commitment we made to the Southwest community, waiting too long without failing a promise. Listen, this city has acted. This city has done that. We have enacted the moratorium. We have enacted the Southwest Master Plan. We've done everything possible. There comes a time when you stop throwing good money after bad money. There is a great, let me tell you, affordable housing. We have a city of affordable housing. We have townhouses that are going to be built now over on the southeast side for, I saw in the 100,000s. So it's not just about that. It's not just about that. It is about a poor use of taxpayer dollars. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I have just as much of a commitment, and it's not, and I don't like when things are made to be a black-white issue. I have a commitment to the whole city, the city of Homestead. I lived in the southwest section for 11 years. So I know the area. And we have a blighted northwest section too. We have the duplex city area. This is concern for the whole city. This is a fiscal responsibility that we have. So invest, assist people in the community. You know what? We are. And I do believe there's needs. I absolutely believe there's needs. I absolutely believe we need to address those needs. And I think as council people, it is our obligation to address the needs. But I'm not going to be made to feel bad or guilty for not addressing this, because it's basically a corporate bailout. It's a bailout of one person who made a promise that didn't come through on the promise, and now we're going to bail them out to the tune of $2 million. Now I'm going to stand on my statement. Now, Mr. Stotts, I have one question for you. I know when the area was purchased, it included a couple of businesses, I think a laundromat, refresh my memory, it didn't just include the shotgun houses. Are we purchasing everything?
Yes, we're purchasing the entire area that's known as the shotgun houses, which includes the property from the railroad right-of-way on the west to Lucy Street on the south to 7th Avenue on the east and 7th Street on the north. It includes those rental units, the grocery store, the laundromat, and quite frankly the two streets that run north and south to the middle of it, which are not dedicated city streets and city right-of-way. It's just one big parcel.
Thank you. And my comments stand. Thank you, Mayor. And when I said we're purchasing, because I'm pretty sure it's going to pass, but let my objection stand.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Mr. Stotts, and look, I'm not naive. I know the loan's going to happen, and I know the acquisition's going to happen. So let's get beyond that. Would it be your contemplation that in the context of finding someone to do affordable housing, that the entire parcel of land would be conveyed with no consideration back to the CRA?
I certainly hope not. That would be part of the negotiation with the developer. We would like to get some return off of it because we can take that money and put it back into additional affordable housing. However, the most important thing is to create affordable housing there. And any deal that takes place will be brought back to the council.
And I agree, and I support affordable housing. But let me run some numbers by you. I don't know who generated the memorandum, but I know that somewhere out of your agency, a narrative was composed whereby there was an estimated demolition and rebuilding cost of about $17 million. If you add that to the $2 million acquisition price and divide it by 85 units, that's a per unit cost of about $224,000 before a builder takes a profit. So before we get too far down the road, do those kinds of numbers fit into an affordable housing category?
When I calculated those numbers, trying to be extremely liberal in my request for assistance from the county, trying to put the worst face rather than the best face on it. We are assuming that to make the units affordable, we're going to have to be able to secure some assistance from the county, from some of their different housing programs to buy down first-time home buyer assistance on some units, though all probably won't be first-time home buyers. Down payment assistance, other kinds of county assistance that are soft second, third, sometimes even fourth mortgages that become forgiven over time, so that ultimately the cost to the buyer is not going to be that high. And again, that's just a guess at what that cost would be. If you are able to attract a nonprofit developer who is a good developer who could pull this off, and most nonprofits developers can't pull this off. There's not a lot of them around that can do this size of a project. But if you can attract one of them, you can further bring those costs down. But again, what I was trying to portray to the county was the worst case.
My concern is with all of those other sources of buyer's assistance, and if we, even if we were to sell this parcel to $1 million for somebody, it still seems to be an extremely high per unit cost based on your preliminary numbers. And I want to make sure that if by a vote of this body, those kind of resources are going to be committed, that it's not all for naught, that we have a product that will produce what Mayor Warren has indicated we all want to produce, and that's some affordable housing and certainly a substantially higher quality of housing in the Southwest area.
If CRA owns the property, obviously nothing's going to happen there that we as the CRA, you as the board, don't approve. It's not going to be a big ugly box full of apartments. We're hoping to see a nice townhouse development there where people will actually own their own property and own their own piece of ground with a homeowners association properly financed so that it can succeed. Attractive, secure, fine place for people to raise families, and as Councilman Porter said, plant a seed in that neighborhood from which we hope something good can grow. Councilman Bell makes a point. We planted a seed there 2 years ago and tried to make that work, and it didn't work. Not every seed everybody plants works. Sometimes they don't work, but that's, for good or for bad, more the nature of the CRA than the city. We have to be opportunistic we have to be more capitalistic in certain ways in that we're not as risk adverse as the city should in fact be. That doesn't mean we should be sloppy or not careful, but not everything we try to do is going to work out well. That's the nature of the community, of redevelopment. It not always works out. And if you wait till you're sure everything's always going to work, you're never going to do anything. Because even what the private side tries to do doesn't always work. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any bankruptcies.
Well, and we did plant those seeds, and I'm not wondering if they weren't smothered by the proposed $3.5 million purchase price. And Mayor Warren wrote a letter to Commissioner Moss asking him to support county funding of a purchase price of $3.5 million for what now is going to be turned over to the city for a bargain basement price, I say tongue-in-cheek, of $2 million. If I might, I think that those 300,000 seeds allowed this owner to take the risk while we adopted a Southwest Master Plan so that the stated appraised value went from $1 million purchase price to $1,950,000. And that's another concern. We've only been supplied with one page of an appraisal, and I don't even know that it's a valid appraisal at $1,950,000. And that's really comes back to my original comment of I'd like to have a contract and work through the numbers and have the conversation we're having before we talk about loaning the money. I mean, the money's made and the deals are done at acquisition. And I think that we need to have been more business oriented and look at that. And I will say that from where I sit and outside with others, that I think the mayor's comment is trying to paint this as an issue that if you don't support the loan, you don't support improvement in the Southwest area, is unfair and inaccurate and politically slanted, and I take personal offense to that. The mayor, Mr. Mayor, you and you others get to have your opinion, and because I'm in the majority, apparently, I don't get to have mine. But when I see that you wrote a letter asking Dennis Moss for $3.5 million, and to intimate that because I'm trying to make sure that the city does good business, I don't support the Southwest section, it erodes the feel that I had for the leadership of this council. It's, pardon the pun, it's not black and white. It's not that simple. You can't paint it with those brushes, and to try to do so shows an utter contempt, I feel, an utter contempt and disrespect for a reasonable difference of opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And just let me say, sometime you have to swallow bitter pills, and I just speak it the way I see it. And I think the more we sit and give the community excuses after excuses, year after year, and nothing is done, if you can't accept them as a Vice Mayor, that's your problem, not mine. Because I think this community, this council have been delaying doing anything in that community for years. And if you're upset about it, point out what have we done since the Southwest Master Plan. Not one thing. Not absolutely one thing of any significance for that community. So how long does the community sit and wait for this leadership to do something to help them? Instead of putting barriers in the way and using politics to delay development. Now is the time. And I'm not waiting 1 second more to do something for that community once and for all.
You don't have to.
And I'm not going to. Not going to wait 1 second more. So don't put any barriers in the front of this program that Mr. Stout has been trying to get something done there for years. A couple of years ago, we had a major crime problem with those shotgun houses. And the majority of this council took the initiative to do something about it. Let's deny any more occupancy on that property until we get that crime taken care of. working again with the owner of the property to make something happen, to avoid hundreds of calls a week, which was very costly to the city. So we didn't lose $300,000. We invested into a program and an activity to eliminate crime in that community. So it wasn't waste. It was providing an opportunity and eliminating a problem in that community. Now we're at the stage where we can provide some affordable housing, and we want to delay it because of politics. But this mayor is not going to sit there and allow that to happen. Now that $4.5 million from the sale of that bowling alley will be going to the CRA, and their primary mission is to help people, help blighted areas that is in need. And if any of you have not gone down there with those shotgun houses and not come back in support of this initiative, shame on you. Because if there's any place in this community that needs some help, it's that community. And we need to provide it. The city's money will be secured. The loan, we will pay back with interest on the $2 million loan, the 1.95, whatever the amount that Mr. Stout says is appropriate. So what is the problem? Just tell me, what is the problem? There's no loss of any taxpayers' money here. It's an investment. The city will own the properties. We're not losing anything. So what is the problem? There should be no delay on this request. Not at all. And I'm just sick and tired of politics standing in the way of progress.
Mayor.
In the night, it should not happen, and it will not happen.
Mayor.
Ms. Garner?
Thank you. You're correct, Mayor. The majority of council has supported this issue. The majority of council has supported the southwest section. And I'd like you to go ahead and call the question so the majority tonight can approve this.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded.
Call the question. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
For the question and for the main motion? You call the question, are you voting on the question or are you voting on the main motion?
The motion was approved and
The motion was approved.
When the question is called, you need to have a vote on the calling of the question.
A vote on the calling of the question.
Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
No.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
No.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Call the question.
Call the question.
Now the vote on the main motion.
On the main motion, roll call.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bell?
No.
Councilwoman Garner?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Losner?
No.
Mayor Warren?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I thought we were going to have a discussion from the audience. You never asked for any discussion from the audience.
Anyone in the audience want to speak on this issue?
Fred Rhodes, live at 101 Northwest 21st Street in Homestead. I'm concerned about the CRA, period. They've been in Homestead now for 3 or 4 years. I like Mr. Strauss, he's a fine man, got some good people working for him. But I had some lots rezoned in Homestead between Chrome Avenue and Flagler Street. I sold one lot to a man, and I sold him a building, not knowing anything about the zoning being changed, because the only advertisement was in the Miami Herald about that big. I never saw it, but I raised so much hell, so they finally showed me a copy of it. There was no advertisement in the local paper about it at all. I never got a notice about them changing it at all. Those lots today are worth about, if I could build a warehouse on it, they're worth about $150,000, $200,000 each. But they zone that, and now, if I want to build something on it, I can build a little store. I got to build an apartment upstairs for somebody to live in. But I don't think anybody wants to live right there on Front Street between Chrome Avenue and Flagler Street. And why that land was brought in and changed the zoning, I will never know. That area down there in the southwest section since CRA's been in there's been about 7 to 10 houses built. Not one of construction, of industrial, or anything like that. But you took industrial zoning away from me and made it so I got to build a little office out front. I can't build a warehouse in the back. I got to build an apartment on the second floor. I don't like the way the CRA's working. I don't know how we got them in here, or how you got them in here. But I think there need to be some changes done. That is that. You can't find an industrial lot in Homestead today less than $400,000. They've zoned all of that industrial land over around where you're putting up the new power plant extension. That's all industrial. But you cut out a lot of people, not only me. Other people in that area had industrial zoning, and it's shot to hell. But I think you need to have a meeting with Mr. Strauss and the CRA, and let's check about some of this stuff that's zoned improperly. I'm not going to build a little office down there for somebody who's going to rent it. Nobody's going to rent one on that street. And they're not going to rent an apartment on that street. I don't care whether you're black or white or Chinese, they're not going to rent one in that area. There's more black people living in Homestead now than there are in the southwest section. I don't know why we're trying to cater to black people. They moved up here with us, and I'm proud of it. But you need to do something about the CRA. I don't know how it got here or how it got started here, but there need to be some changes made about some of the zoning here. There need to be some industrial zoning in Homestead. Now, if you want to buy a lot, you got to pay through the nose for it. And I wish you'd try to get a meeting arranged with somebody so you could tell me and a lot of other people that own property there that have it shot out of the box on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Jimmy Williams, 550 Southwest 10th Street. I'm speaking on behalf of some of my parishioners who live in the Southwest area. You're right, it's not a black and white issue. It's a need. It's an issue that all of the Southwest, that there may be townhouses on the other side that you may call affordable, but what's affordable to you may not be affordable to everybody else. So we have to define what does affordable look like. Every community and makeup is not going to be to the townhouses. We need affordable houses and issues, and I agree with the mayor. And we need to stop pouting and be the people who we have elected to sit in those seats. And let's give the people what they need and what they deserve. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Winston Ellerton. My address is 305 Northwest 9th Avenue, but I grew up in the southwest section of Homestead. I have been out in this city all my life. I was born and raised here. I know the former mayor of Homestead, Mr. Fred Rowe. I think you made a great decision in giving a shot in the arm of the southwest section, because we need help down there. We have been neglected. Ever since I've been there, I was born there. And when you say that, find other excuses rather than help, I understand. Give him an agenda that he has to follow. And we don't follow that, you punish him. But don't punish the community for things that need to be done. I sat most of my life, and I watch y'all come down there and ask for our votes. And y'all tell us all kind of things what you're going to do. The pastor don't give us an opportunity to question or say anything. But I think it should stop, because you really don't mean what you're saying. You're standing in church lying to God, saying you're going to support the community. Support the community. Like you said, make it up. I wish I could say the community, the whole city of Homestead is on one accord. But when you divide it, I wish it was some way that you wouldn't divide the community. You divide it when you say black and white, you're working on this side, that side. You divide it, and then when you get in office, you say, well, let's bring the communities together. But you have to remember that you divide it when you go to talking about we're going to do for this side and not do for that. But I think you're doing a great job
when we stand together. And I thank the mayor and those who voted for him that to get this done, I think it should be done immediately. Because the longer we wait, the more people forget about it. But this is my first time here in City Hall in a long time since Reverend Green was here. I studied under him, and I'm not a politician. I'm just saying about our community, and I will be back at some more city council meetings. I will voice my opinion. I hope that you understand that I'm just a voice in the wilderness crying that y'all would do the right thing. Thank you.
Brian Judge, 260 Northeast 10th Street, again. Now, I'm hearing a lot of rhetoric about helping those people over there. I think that ship has sailed. Y'all done kicked them out already, To me, that's basically the heart of the problem. Your Southwest Master Plan is geared towards making it attractive to developers to displace the people over there and take over that property. Now, replacing someone with someone richer is not helping that community. It may look better, but it ain't helping. Now, I don't know if we should get the guy from Household Debt Solutions back up here, but I think that if you sell the bowling alley and you have that money in hand, that would be the time to look for the best project to do in the community. Now, it's fine to allocate that money to community projects, but I'd like to see them be resident-based projects, like the type of zoning that would allow residents to partake in activities that would give them more income themselves, not developer-based projects. And I'd like to see the money in hand before we actually do anything, because although the property may appraise at that, properties have never sold in the time frames that we've hoped they have, and we've always had to dip into the general fund. So, thank you.
Carmelo Gonzalez, Jr., 414 Northwest 4th Avenue. I kind of agree with everybody. That's weird.
Are you a politician?
No. I understand misuse and different things. I wish my father was here. He'd be bursting at the seams to speak. In the right hands, we've been told that certain things in certain neighborhoods wouldn't go. And my father is redeveloped the majority of the Northwest section. Not on his own. In the right hands, with the right people, no misuse of money, something can be done. So, I kind of agree with everybody. Sorry to say that. I don't know the ins and outs of the whole deal, but if it's packaged correctly and done right, maybe the people will get someplace nice to live, and everybody will be happy. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next item. Mr. Shahada.
Let me read the resolution. It's a resolution of the City Council of the City of Homestead, Florida, waiving competitive bidding requirement and authorizing the city to purchase 2 Baldor TS-175 trailer-mounted generators from Standby Systems, Inc., pursuant to City Code Section 2411.187, exemptions from competitive bidding, providing for an effective.
Properly moved by Ms. Bell. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
Second by Mr. Porter. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Reports of Mayor and Council. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, the city hosted its, second annual Hurricane Preparedness Seminar here at Council Chambers. We had really a stellar. We had representatives of the Red Cross, FEMA, Miami-Dade County, states, the insurance department talking about insurance fraud and helplines and so forth in the aftermath of hurricane events. The city has prepared a hurricane preparedness guide that's being distributed here at City Hall and at various locations throughout the city. I might want to add that the representative from the American Red Cross, the first words out of her mouth is that this guide is better than the guide that the Red Cross puts out. It's really a comprehensive guide. It has just full of information in a short period of time. I think there's some available on the tables in the back of the council chambers. Our police officers will be assisting in distributing these materials this coming Saturday at the Sedanos across the street here on Northeast 8th Street, Saturday, June 30th from 11 to 3 at the new Oasis Publix, and Saturday, July 7th from 11 to 3 at the Dickinson Senior Citizens Center on Chrome Avenue and Northeast 16th Street. And speaking of the Red Cross, I had the pleasure of visiting and taking part in the opening of the new facility with Mayor Warren as well as Mayor Wallace from Florida City, Councilwoman Bell, and then Councilwoman Gardner. And certainly we wish them well, and it's just a great addition to our community, a very spacious and well laid out and well planned facility. Certainly that between the fires, the tropical storms, and hurricanes, and all of those community issues that the Red Cross helps the people of this community address 24/7, 365 days a year. That's just a wonderful addition to our community. Mayor, I received today, or in the last couple of days, and I'm sure you did too, as well as other council members. Well, let me backtrack. As part of the Villages of Homestead Homeowner Association meeting a couple of weeks ago, one of the topics of conversation was the status of the former Educational Facility Benefit District school site adjacent to the Villages of Homestead. Board Member Greer came and presented her perspective from her side of the table as to how we got to where we were and how this may go from here, as to how it might evolve as a school site and under what configuration. And I know that I think I speak for Councilman Porter as well as myself, that we were both kind of bursting at the seams and sitting on our hands, and that we were not able to speak, were not able to ask questions, just able to sit and listen to the presentation by Board Member Greer. Anything more than that would have been a violation of the Sunshine Law, and I think that Mrs. Greer took great relish in the fact that she got to speak without another elected official jumping in and putting in. And I think Mrs. Waldman was instrumental in putting that together. But the final upshot of that is that room full of Villages residents, Mayor, and I know we got a request from the Association President Larry Deal for the city to put on an event where we could interact with one another as well as the residents and any school system representatives that may want to come down. And I hope that we're able to schedule that in the near future. Certainly I think 4th of July week would not be good, but certainly as soon as we can, if we can put that together. I know I've had several inquiries from those who were there to ask for that. Also, I know, we spoke earlier that the preliminary numbers with the new budget legislation will impact the city's general fund to the tune of at least $2.5 million, and certainly that's timely to know this year as we begin well into our budgeting process. But I think, Mayor, it might be beneficial not only to council but to those in the community to have some graphic depictions of just where the impacts are and where the potential cutbacks may lie, and how it will play out over a 3 to 5 year budgeting process. I know that we're in those long-term budgeting cycles now, and certainly it's not as bad as we were anticipating earlier, but I think that for ourselves and for the community that would be very beneficial. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. And you have reflected two of the comments I had under my business, and one was to schedule a workshop on our budget and the impact on the new legislation as soon as possible, as soon as staff is able to get that going, and also to have a meeting reference the status of the what's that, the 32 acres, 37?
It's on my agenda too.
To schedule a meeting and make it public so that we can chime in on where we are and where we're going with that issue. So those were two I had on my agenda. So I appreciate you bringing them up at this time.
Mr. Porter's next.
Mr. Porter?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I just think the Vice Mayor touched most of the issues because I think we've all been receiving the emails. And the only thing I would request is from the attorney, maybe we should forward those emails to the attorney, all of them. And so there's some legal questions in there that I'm really not sure about. And before we go to there's a lot of these issues, there's a lot entwined in this that are outside the scope of what this body really has purview over.
Could I chime in?
Yes, sir.
I talked to Mr. Weiss already, and what I've asked him to do is maybe we need to have a sit-down with the attorneys before we go public, with the public meeting, to get an update, because I'm a little confused on what legal position the city have versus the defunct EFBD and now this 501c3, and so maybe, Richard, at the next committee of the whole, before we have the public meeting, have you or one of your colleagues to talk about.
I've asked our staff to prepare an email or a memo dealing with the status of the land, the status of the EFBD, the status of the charter school, and sort of surrounding issues. And I know that you have a meeting coming up, so I've asked that be done tomorrow. So
I should have known the mayor would be ahead of me.
Just by a couple hours.
That's all I had, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Councilwoman Bell?
Thank you. Well, I think the conversation's been very interesting, and your education chair is sitting right here. And for the last three and a half years, I haven't missed an EFBD meeting. So I'm very well aware of what is happening, what is going on with the status of the land, and what is going on with that particular school site. I'm also very well aware that there is a lot of misstatements, shall we say, which is just kind of, I guess, like a rumor goes halfway around the world before the truth gets to the end of the block. Well, that's kind of like what's going on now, so I think a meeting is in very good order, and I think that's a great idea. I would have loved to be invited to any type of forum where to address that issue along with Ms. Greer. And what happens sometimes is you have school board issues, county issues, and then you have city or local issues. What happens is when you have somebody on the school board level or the county level trying to deal with the local city level or a city issue, or someone on the city level trying to deal with an outside issue. And that's what happens is very, very often statements are made that are very often the person stating them really believes them to be true, so it's not that they're lying, it's just that the statements aren't 100% accurate. And I'm finding out that there's a lot of statements, and then by the time it gets relayed, you all know what happens. So there definitely does need to be a meeting. But I will tell you, the very simple version, and we'll discuss this further, but the simple version is this 39-acre site that the school board rejected. They just rejected it outright. I mean, we have quotes in the newspapers, it was rejected, and suddenly now I'm hearing that the school board wants it, but they rejected it, and they refused to give the EFBD the impact fee dollars in order to finish developing the site. So I'm confused about the school board status on that. So, I mean, I'm not confused at all about what happened. Let me be very clear. I'm not confused about what happened. At the end of the day, when we were ready to go, our funds were denied us. The EFBD funds were denied us. And so there's, different spin on that, but that's the bottom line. Now, the site, the 39 acres, is owned by the not-for-profit, who's going to probably more than likely convey it to a charter school company who's going to build a K-8. Because now I'm hearing about a K-12 being built with 5,000 students. That's just not the case at all. It's K-8. Possibly in the future, in about 3 to 4 years, there'll be a second school built there, and that will have a lot of community input as well, so there's nothing to be alarmed about. That school's been prepared to be a school site for the past 3 years, so it's not a surprise. It wasn't an issue of contamination or arsenic, it was an issue of funding. And that's just a very simple version. So I think a meeting where people in the community who really want the blow-by-blow of what happened, that's great. I also wrote a very lengthy article that the news leader put in. Thank you very much. It was long, and believe it or not, I worked very hard to get it down to 1,000 words to explain what happened with the EFBD, and I entitled it "The EFBD from its Genesis to its Exodus." Little humor there, but just to explain what happened from the beginning to the end. So I would encourage anybody to contact the news leader and get a copy and read that, because it gives a really good idea of what happened with the EFBD. Also, Mayor, I wanted to read a letter just read it into the record. It doesn't need action or vote. It's a statement that the City of Homestead's Education Committee signed, and we prepared this, and they are very much on board. And it's just a statement from the Education Committee. It doesn't need a vote. It's just reflecting their views. And it just says, the Homestead Education Committee has been made aware of the action of the EFBD to dissolve itself on May 7, 2007. The Education Committee of the City of Homestead stands in support of the decision and the action taken by the EFBD Board of Directors. The Education Committee has been meeting monthly for over 3 years and has considered the building of new schools in Homestead a priority. The Education Committee overwhelmingly supported the establishment of the Homestead Educational Facilities Benefit District in 2005 as a mechanism for financing the construction of new schools. The Education Committee has had as our chairperson Linda Bell on the Board of Supervisors of the Homestead EFBD from its inception. Ms. Bell has kept the committee informed as to the progress of the EFBD and its efforts to finance new schools. The committee is well aware that despite the school board staff's promise to the EFBD to turn over educational impact fees and other school board capital funds to build new schools within the EFBD boundaries, the school board staff never released any funds to the EFBD. The EFBD was unable to continue to exist without any funds. The Education Committee supports the EFBD Board's decision, which includes the support of 2 EFBD Board members appointed by the school board itself to dissolve the EFBD on May 7, 2007. The dissolution of the EFBD will allow the nonprofit owner of the school site to expeditiously move forward through a charter school approach to cause the first school to be constructed and opened by the fall of 2008 in Homestead. So it's just a statement, and we really were very we weren't indicting anybody in this statement. It's just a statement of facts to be put into the record by the Education Committee. And part of that was because people want to know, where does the Education Committee stand on this issue? So I felt that people keep asking that, so I asked the Education Committee where they felt on that issue. So I wanted that to be read into the record. Also, one last item. I went downtown. I was out of town all last week in Kansas City for a conference, and missed you all. It's really good to be back home. But I also attended the Defy It, that's the drug-free youth in town. I went up to the Bankers Club in downtown Miami to do the installation ceremony for the whole, the brand new board of directors of Defy It, of the entire county. And it's a beautiful organization, and I'm inviting the drug-free youth in town here. And Homestead Senior High has been a shining light, and Homestead Middle School and Campbell have been a shining light in the Defy It clubs. They are just winning the awards every single year for the Defy It clubs. So I'm going to bring them, and I'm bringing a young woman who wrote a beautiful poem from Homestead Senior High to read her poem to us for drug-free youth in town. And Mayor, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. I have some action items here, but before I get to those, let me make a brief comment just for the audience consumption. You know, we just had a very lively debate on the shotgun houses, and fortunately we moved it forward. But I just want the public to know that the Vice Mayor and I are very good friends. Councilwoman Bell and I are very good friends, and of course Councilman Porter. We're all very good friends up here. But when sometime there's an issue, we're very compassionate about these issues, and we want to see our position move along. But I have a lot of respect for the Vice Mayor. He has been very, very supportive. We had a unanimous vote here on the Southwest Master Plan, so you need to know that. But I just don't want you to leave it to say that we're at each other's throat and we're enemies because we disagree. We always disagree on these very contentious items, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for Ms. Bell, the Vice Mayor, and Mr. Porter, Ms. Garner, and the others that are absent. But we are all, our primary interest is what's in the best interest of Homestead, and sometimes we see from a different mirror. But at the end of the day, I think the bottom line is we want the very same thing. And I will tell you, each and every one of us here committed to doing what we can to make not only the Southwest community better, but the entire city better. So I just want you to know that. There's a lot of love up here. There's no hatred up here. And, you know, we're going to move that agenda forward. So I just wanted to share that with you.
One more disclaimer. It's absolutely not true that the 2 absences tonight are our first budget cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. A motion to approve Ms. Pat Mellison to take Tim Williams' place on the Empowerment Trust. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval, Mayor.
Moved by Mr. Porter, is there a second? Second by Mr. Vice Mayor. Any comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Second is a Special Events Committee appointment, Reverend L. Williams, Reverend Jimmy L. Williams III, appointed to the Special Event Grant Committee. Second. Approved by Mr. Porter, moved by Mr. Porter, second by Ms. Bell. Any comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. And just to announce that we have an opening, one opening, and I think that's soon to be taken care of by Ms. Powell at the next meeting. We have an opening for the Planning and Zoning Board. I would welcome any recommendation from council. And we have one opening for the Education Committee. And finally, I want to announce that I have a meeting scheduled on Wednesday morning at 10:30 with the superintendent. If you have not received a copy of his most recent letter to me, I'm hoping that each council member received it.
Yes.
Have everybody received it?
No?
You haven't?
No? Oh.
It's in the mail? Okay. But I have a meeting Wednesday morning with the superintendent, and I'll bring back the results of that meeting. No further business for this body. I want to thank all of you for coming out this evening. Have a good evening. He's got it.